Hello and welcome into the Sorare Data Show. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare, joined today by Sean Newsham, PSU2, to talk about everyone's favorite subject, DNPs. Sean, you have any this weekend?
I mean, I'm sure, but I don't know.
Any unexpected ones?
I mean, I had 95 lineups, so. Do you want me to look through them, Laird?
No, I don't.
DNP?
I actually don't. The only one that I can think of that I had, I searched the player on Twitter to find out like what I missed. And all of the comments were like, I don't know why he's out. He's been our best player. Why is he not playing in this game? And so I was like, all right, I didn't miss that one. What I did miss was a reward coming up 34 points short for a player that probably wasn't going to score that well, but well enough for a reward.
That makes sense. I mean, let me go see if I can because I can do it quickly on the app because I can just go to leader or like list. Let's see, Laird. I'm sure I have some. I mean, I definitely ate some horrendous scores this week.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, well, Eric Tommy DNP'd, but like their season's over, so like that's not like shocking, I guess.
Well, like you had the Neuer one last week, right?
I had the Neuer one last week where I literally would have won the division if he played.
Yeah.
That was fun. Habib Gay DNP'd. I mean, that could have been known. I don't care enough to check that because that was like my last like unique lineup. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have tons of them actually looking. Carl Starfelt. I mean, I don't know if he was known or anything. Again, like once I get to my lower lineups, I don't really give a shit. Sadiq didn't play, but I think Sadiq could have been known because he left the game before. Oh, Luke de Jong. But like again, rotation, congestion.
Yeah.
Like
I don't even have PSV players, and I knew he was possible.
Yeah, it was definitely in play that he was going to DNP. So like, no, I guess I don't really have any this week that were relevant, but like that was this week. That's like definitely could have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. All my DNPs looks like were like guys that like it's like, oh, they're playing like every 3 days. Like definitely possible.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for coming. Ricky Lomas first in said one of the worst feelings on Sorare is seeing one of your players not in the starting lineup, which yeah, it's true. Kev Heard, what's up? Bob Franklin on the podium. Congratulations, you three. Stefan, hello. Jow says it's simple. The player in the lineup only gets locked after his game begins. Until then, you're always free to change the lineup. That way you can make last-minute buys from the market. I don't see cons.
I mean, all right. So let me say I agree with everything in there except for the last like 5 words.
And the last one is those last few words are important. We'll get into that, Chow. Don't worry about it. Mike Baston, what's up? Hoodwink, long live DNPs. 5 rare goalies DNP'd over the last 2 weekends injected. That is some sort of sick Sorare feeling, I'm sure. Tom, are there DNP solutions? Yes. Are there good DNP solutions? In my opinion, no. We'll get into it as well. Risu, what's up? Raul, Glenn, simple, do all your coaching badges, become a professional manager of an overpowered stacking team, and never get a DNP again. Seems like a lot of work.
Kev Heard said that the Habib Gay was an injury in training and was not announced till after lock, and he's going to be out long term. So that's
even better. I love that, the unannounced long term injury.
Yep.
Holty says every time you win, it's because someone else had a DNP. Step, what's
always true. You can just score the most points, and then it doesn't matter.
Mike Basson, set all lineups after the last game ends, and voila, problem solved. Oh, I like that. Looking for food said, I thought this was no longer a problem, judging by the lack of complaints online. I think that's fair. Parapress, what's up? Hoodwink says, my guess for this is that Laird hates subs and rolling locks, and PSU2 loves them and thinks those that don't are morons. I'm actually going to give Sean a little bit of the benefit here, that I don't think he believes that people who are against them are morons. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. You're muted. You're muted.
Oh yeah, I don't think that people that don't want them are wrong either. I think that there's no proper answer that is perfect. It's just honest. Like there's no perfect answers. There are what I deem better answers and worse answers, which we can talk about. Like we'll talk about it. And I hate this subject, so
yeah. Sweet. Here we go. DNP Donkey said, I love DNPs, which, I mean, if you're a DNP Donkey, makes the game more interesting and strategic. Subs getting 35 base score makes non-starters less problematic now.
No, but
Need to say we should have a bingo for these guesses. Surface back in this live chat. Way to be, Surface. Toby, what's up? Stefan said DNPs are a problem with all matches. The solution is to be able to insert a reserve card that you can activate up to 5 minutes before the match if necessary, which I think is just subs. Skazmo, what's up? Footy Woody, Ahmed, Peter, Simo. Appreciate everyone coming in. Rikomon said I had Zelenica last minute injury, if that's how you say it.
I mean, I have one of them. I don't know if I played them this weekend, but I definitely have one.
Brad said, perfect timing for this topic. I'm starting to think the only way stars will be stars if Sorare goes to a 7-day game week. All the extra rotation is stifling the scores of so many top players. That's actually even a different conversation, but we'll get to that. Sean, was Ryan Gauld known?
I don't know. I
don't
played
know.
them. Well, so they played in the midweek in the Canada Cup finals. And their season's not over though. So I don't think it was known though. I mean, I played them. I also didn't spend much time looking to know. Let me see. Ryan Gauld was out through injury, but I think it was not announced until the game started. But maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Apparently he revealed post game that Gauld had a hamstring injury. So I don't think it was known till.
That sounds not known to me.
After lock, yeah. He was on the availability report as questionable because of a knee injury.
Oh, okay. So okay.
Yeah.
Vita said 3 words: list or play. How do you feel about list or play? You don't list cards, so you don't even care.
Whatever. I mean, whatever.
Alex said there is no solution. I had 2 strong lineups absolutely nosedive by Berger. What is that? Verstraat, who I captained. DNP out of nowhere on Sunday afternoon with a tooth infection.
Nice. Those are the ones that are great.
You don't see those on the availability report much.
Nope.
Toby, the Friday evening ACL tear in training is always a great way to start the weekend. Kev Hurd said DNP Solution spend more and buy locked players.
Yeah, there's no such player as a locked player. They can just get a hamstring injury in warmups and not play.
Right.
I understand what you're saying. Obviously, there are guys that are very much more likely to play than others. But anybody can just pick up a random knock and the pregame warmups and don't play.
Right. Yeah. Toby said, I hate every solution to DNPs. I've heard kind of how I hate every burn mechanism. I've heard too. Vita said list or play was the response to there's no con to rolling locks. That was late swap. Mike said rolling locks and late swap will be a new category of division next season. In-season, classic, and rolling lock late swap.
I do think that's a valid solution. I do.
Do you put the better rewards there or the worse rewards there?
The better.
Of course you say that.
It's the more competitive game mode.
DD Server said, Sir, NBA is implementing a rolling lock for their daily comps, I believe I read, which is true. That might be them testing to see if it's viable for football on a wider basis. I think
we know it's viable for football because of how they do it with rivals, per se. It's viable. It's just a matter of if they want to do it.
I think rivals, in the discussion of rivals, doesn't necessarily mimic the pro game.
Yeah.
Rivals late swap is not remotely close to what we would get.
No, but it could work. The mechanism can work. It's there.
Sure. Yeah. Vita said there are plenty of solutions. They all have cons. Depends what your priority is for a game designer.
Correct.
So, Sean, the 3 solutions are basically subs, late swap, and rolling locks.
Well, no, all right. So there's 4 options. Okay, do nothing, eat DNPs.
Well, that's not a solution.
No, but I'm saying that I said options. There's 4 options. 1, eat shit, DNPs stay. That's 1. 2, subs. Where you just put in a 6th player and it's a sub or whatever.
Which also doesn't solve DNPs. But
again,
yes.
We'll talk about that. 3, late swap. What was the 4th one you gave me?
Rolling locks.
Yeah, I said rolling locks is 3rd. What's the other one?
No, you said subs was...
Subs, rolling locks.
Late swap.
I mean, that's the same thing as rolling locks.
No. Rolling locks is the competition locks at the first game, not every game.
Okay. And then latent swap. So
let me just like clarify it. The argument for rolling locks is we know all the prem news when prem locks. That doesn't mean that like you don't get a DNP on Sunday or Monday, but like that's the point. It moves the deadline.
Footy Woody said, I know you guys are struggling for topics, but this is ridiculous. I don't really think that we're struggling for topics. I think we have plenty of topics. I just hate this topic. Also, you said in the end of the day, it's your own lack of knowledge and research that makes you play a DNP. No solutions needed. And you also said people moaning about DNPs are just shit at picking players and don't have enough knowledge on the teams they're picking. Some of the worst takes I've ever heard right here. Not sure that you can have much less sense than this, but like, my IQ definitely has lowered in the last like reading this shit. So yes.
Do you want to talk about subs first?
Yeah, because I can't. That's dumb as shit.
So Vita said you can have subs for a single lineup, subs shared by a league track, or a single pool of subs for the game week. Just to give 3 top of my head. So
yeah. Well, so here's the thing. We have David said harsh. I mean, I'm just calling it like I see it. I think most people would agree with me. I'm just more willing to call it out than other people. Again. Like, just is what it is. So there's 4 options. Of the 4 options, there are lots of sub options within the options, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which you have to go to. So like of the 4 options, I'm going to say the 2 that I think are the worst. And you let me know if you agree with me on this.
So before you say anything, are the worst for who?
I just think everybody in general. It's just the least logical and just the least odd. I just don't think they make much sense.
Sure.
Okay? Option 1 is the subs. I don't think it makes sense. Having to lock like a 6-player in the line doesn't make sense. What if your goalie DNPs? Are you just going to get an extra player? Because that doesn't make sense. What if a player DNPs and you have the goalie as like your sub? Like, how does that make sense? I just don't think there are mechanisms that have this make the most sense. Or like, do you lock like 7 players? Like, or do you make it so like the lineup still has to be a valid lineup when you're doing it? I think there's just too much murkiness around there, and I just don't think it makes much sense. Do you agree with that?
Does having 2 subs, is it that murky?
I mean, well, like, let's say you have like a midfield sub, you have 2 midfielders in your lineup and your forward DNPs. Like, are you going to get that midfielder as your DNP?
So the solution I've heard for this is that your sub cannot be the same position as your extra player, because the extra player already means you have 2 of that position.
Okay, so pretend that is the case. Then, like, let's say you have a defender as your sub and your forward DNPs. Do you just get the sub? Anyways, I just don't like this sub option. I just think it's the worst. I think it's the least logical option. Just doesn't make much sense to me.
We didn't like talk at all about like basically taking advantage of these rules yet. Like, we'll go into that as well.
Correct. Like, there's tons of ways that I can game that system and make it so that it is logical and stuff. It's just, I just doesn't make tons of sense to me. The second option that I don't like very much is the rolling lock that you talked about. So like, I don't say there's a challenger game at 1 p.m. on Friday, and have Korean guys that don't play till Sunday, or Japan guys that don't play till Sunday, or guys that play you just don't get the information that really changes anything to me. So like, to me, it's just not very logical. I just don't really see a way that that's a super helpful situation. Like was talking about
that it's really helpful for the single league comps.
If there were single league comps, yes. So like, you could maybe do it for the Prem, the Bundesliga, but like, even those, like, there's a La Liga game today. The others were at like 9 a.m. on Saturday. Do we really have full info on that one?
Totally. Yeah.
So like, I don't know. To me, it just doesn't really do much. It is better for the single league entries. And also the real reason too that I think that these options are not great in order for our option to make sense to me to change it, it has to be better than what is currently in place. And neither of them to me are better alternatives to what is currently in place.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think on the 4 options and just in general those things?
So I think, like, I don't think rolling locks solves enough of the problem. But I do think it's reasonable to like have them for the single league comps. Like FPL, FPL has a moving deadline based on when the first game is. So I don't think that's like outrageous to consider that. But it also, I think, gets a slightly complicated when you have, like, if you play Champ, Bundesliga, La Liga, and Prem, and you have 4 different deadlines you have to deal with. I think from an experience standpoint, that starts to become a negative.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just, it doesn't solve the solution at all, really, to me, in order to warrant changing what currently is in place.
That's sort of how I feel. Yeah. Honestly, that's how I feel with all of them.
Yeah, which I totally respect that. I totally think that is a very fair way to look at things. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So anyways, what is your thoughts on subs?
I think somebody mentioned it, and it's kind of like it might have been Vita, actually. Like, you still end up with like different lineups than you can play now. Like, you would end up with 2 defenders and 2 forwards. I think that was the example. And now it's all different for everybody. And so the sub thing is kind of interesting. Do you think somebody should get a sub that your sub should only apply if the player is out versus if they just don't play?
I mean, that's a tricky one. Like, I think the way that you have to do it is, like, if your player receives a 0, it subs.
So if they're in the squad and they just don't play, you get a sub?
That's what I think is how it would have to work.
Why wouldn't it just be if they were out?
Because I just think that
like, so your situation from this weekend, right? Like, Luke de Jong was not going to be, was on the bench, right? Yeah. But like, everybody knew there was a risk with PSV, and it's like you're benefiting from that, from taking the risk in a way that like you made, essentially, you got all of the reward upside with no risk, because if he comes on, then great, and if he doesn't, hey, you get a sub anyway. It almost like helps you make more. I don't even want to call it riskier lineups, because it's actually less risky, because if he doesn't play, then yeah, you get a sub. Great.
Yeah, it's worth it. Like, if you have a guy that's like questionable that would smash if they play, you just plug him in, because you know that you're going to get a sub if he's not in, and it's no big deal. And if he plays, he's probably going to smash. I don't know. Again, I just think it's bad either way. Like, and I think there's just lots of ways that it just doesn't realistically work that well. Like, is your 5-man lineup, like, all of a sudden have to have like 4 subs because you have a midfield sub, a forward sub, a defender sub, a goalie sub? Like, I don't know. I just don't think I think subs are the worst option, because I don't like rolling lock. I just think like is pretty much what we have now. So it's pretty much like the same, right? Which is why
in terms of like information that we have.
Yeah, like, you just don't really get tons more information. You get a little bit, so like it's fine. Like, it is slightly better, I guess, than what we currently have, because maybe you get a little bit more information. Because like, I guess it's true. Like, we do randomly get information that comes out, and like Prem plays on Saturdays. Like, some champion stuff plays on the week. Like, the single leagues, it would help. It would make more sense.
Yeah, I think it would help with those.
I think rolling lock like is slightly better than what we have now. Like, not enough to probably change everything, but like it's probably slightly better. Subs, I just think, is worse, like outright worse.
Do you think you'd be more likely to prioritize the single league comps if they had rolling, like if they locked at the first game?
Yeah, I mean, like, yes, but also, I don't know. Like, I would make my lineups this pretty much similar to how I do currently.
That's reasonable.
But I would adjust them if something hit, I guess. But like, I don't know. So like, I think it would be slightly different. So like, I already prioritize those for the most part anyways.
Right. Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
But I don't really think it would change anything in terms of priority level.
Do you think that there is a reasonable, so you mentioned rivals earlier, how that's basically late swap.
Yeah. Well, it's not late swap. It's just like you're actually making a sub in game.
Right. So sub in game. Would you want that as part of pro?
No, I just don't think that makes much sense.
Okay.
I just don't think that makes much sense. Like, are you gonna make it so one sub per lineup and then you just like you think that like you have to sit around your computer normally? Holy shit, would you have to never leave your computer in this mode? And like this comes from probably the most person benefited in the world of this game mode, because like I sit on my computer like 15 hours a day a lot of the time, especially during the fall. No, I don't want that. Like I think that's like ludicrous and would be ridiculous.
I agree. You mentioned rivals, and so I had to like bring it up. Toby said, should Rolling Rocks lock when the first game kicks off? That makes that game so much better to have players from, since you literally have the official lineups out.
Again, it's helpful, and it's even more helpful for the like individual leagues, because the individual leagues, like, you will have a lot more information, and like sometimes those leagues will have like 4 or 5 games kick off at one time for the start. Like a lot of times, obviously, Prem has the 7:30 a.m. game on Saturday, and then the 10s, then the 12:30s, then the 3. Then on Sunday they have like a 8, 11:30, and 3 or whatever, or 1, like whatever it is. But so yeah, like in theory, I don't know. Like I just don't really like the path. I just don't really think it makes tons of sense to me. It would give you the best benefit for like that game, that's first game to lock, because you will have full information for that game.
Right. Kev Hurt said, I too prefer rolling locks, Laird. I actually don't want rolling locks.
No, Laird, I am almost certain Laird wants nothing to change from what it is right now. I think if we talk about all these options, Laird is going to want nothing to change.
I've yet to find a reason for me to like any other option.
Yeah, but like are we talking about you personally, or
for me?
Yeah. So I think we approach this at late swap is best for me. No doubt. Late swap makes the most sense for me personally, individually. Exactly how it is makes the most sense for you individually. So just so we have like that on record of like what we want, that is what we would prefer for ourselves individually. For the rest of the conversation, I think we need to discuss stuff from a neutral perspective of like what we think makes more sense for the entire fan base and audience.
Sure. Yeah.
I just wanted to like discuss that. Like that's what we would want for ourselves selfishly. And then the rest of the conversation will be about what we think makes the most sense for everyone as a whole.
Yeah. Apologies, Kev Hurd. Was talking about Rolling Rock, or Rolling Rock, not Rolling Locks. I think Rolling Rock was the first beer I ever tasted, if I remember correctly. It's just like water. Anyway, Vita said league track pool with late swaps only is my preferred option. I don't like late swaps that break the lister play, as it breaks the fairness aspect. Why would it break lister play though? Oh, like if you had a card listed and then you delisted in order to play it. I don't think you'd be able to do that. But who knows? Not a fan of automatic swaps. Sean, why is late swap bad for people that are not you?
Late swap is bad for people that are not me, because you typically have to be active a lot. There are pros to it. The first pro is you spend less time setting your lineups in theory. You will have the parachute to be able to swap out guys that are not playing, which therefore means your pre-lineup time spent will be less. But your post-lineup time will be more heavy. You will have to check pretty constantly, especially on lineups that are important to you, whether or not your guys are in the starting lineup. If they're not, you'll have to likely swap them out for someone else, which means you will have to have players that are good on your bench ready to be subbed in. For someone like me, that's not as big of a deal, because I have a lot of high-end players that I just won't play on a given weekend. Whereas if you don't, you might have to like leave someone good out of a different lineup just so you have them as an option to swap in at a later time. So you will have to check when the Prem plays. Like, all right, let me check through the lineups. All right, these guys are all in. I'm good to go. You will have to go through it. It can be a tedious process. For someone like me, very simple, very quick. It takes me about 10 seconds. I pull up whatever I'm using and just see if everyone's in the lineup and call it a day and move on to the next lineup. And like some lineups, I like once the lineup's just dead, I'm just not going to give a shit about it. I'm just not going to care. But if the lineup's very important and very good, if I get like, let's say I start off with 3 like 80s or 90s in my lineup and I have 2 guys left, you're damn right I'm going to check every time those 2 players to make sure they're playing. And also what I might do is if someone else comes up that plays that is just like a slam dunk spot, we'll give the example PSV. If I have a Ricardo Pepi on the weekend, if I'm like, oh shit, Ricardo Pepi's starting in this spot, they're probably going to score 5 goals. I might plug him into a lineup that I'll just take someone else out because he's such a good play that I want him somewhere. So there's a lot of process that would go into it that is different than what we have now.
So you're assuming there that you could take a player from a different lineup.
No, I'm saying if Pepi was just out in my non-lined up players list, and I'm just like, oh, I'm going to get Pepi in somewhere because he's there. So I think for that reason, like it is more effort for people. But I will say, how many people line up more than like 5 lineups? You know?
I do know.
Okay, I'll keep talking after you do that. So like if I have 95 lineups, I'm having to check pretty much every game to make sure someone's playing because I just have loads and loads of lines. If I have 2 or 3 lineups, I don't have to check very often because there's just not very much that I'm going to be doing. I will have to check a couple games a week, and I don't think it's a very big time increase from what I'm doing now. I just have to spend a minute a couple times a weekend checking to see if a player's in the lineup in those situations. But if you have 20, 30 lineups, it can be quite a bit. If you have 1 to 2, it's not going to take you very much time.
So I have the data from last weekend. How many people?
Woody, I didn't mention your IQ. I mentioned my IQ lowering. Said nothing about your IQ.
How many people do you think had at least 5 lineups last weekend? Not like this current game week, like last week.
I literally have no idea.
22,864.
So that's a good amount of people that would have to make 22,000 plus people would have to have a significant amount of increase in terms of the time they spent after lock.
Vita said you wouldn't have to check much because we would send you a notification, obviously. Yeah, but each check, for me, it's actually not the amount of time per check. It's the number of checks. That it's just like it's not. And I also completely disagree with it'll save you time when you're building your lineups because you're going to have to take on the additional time of figuring out which players you're leaving out in order to be subs.
If you don't have very many players, that doesn't take that long. And if you have a lot of players, it doesn't matter because you have good players that are options anyways.
But you have good players and options in other lineups. Like you would almost
I have
lineups, no?
I have good players that aren't playing that I'm fine with as subs. Like I don't need to leave out like Mbappe to sub. I can just use like another really good play as well.
You could what? Sorry?
I can just sit there and use all my other pretty good plays as well.
Brad said if someone's playing fewer than 5 lineups, then they probably don't have the cards to do subs anyway. I mean, if subs were something, I think people would adjust to how many cards they buy.
Yeah, I also think that like a lot of time, if you have 5 lineups, like you probably have 40, 50 cards because you typically need a good amount of cards. Like, yeah, obviously sometimes you'll just have like no cards and you'll just run the max amount of lineups. So maybe in that situation, instead of running 5 lineups, you'll run 4 and then have a couple guys as subs.
Midiozo, I don't have how many of those 22,000 are limited. I assume 99% of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think there are a lot of people who don't play limited.
No, the only people that don't play limited are like the super whales that can't be
right. Right.
Yeah. I would assume. I mean, I guess actually there's some most people play limited, but like there's probably some people that are just like I can't be bothered with limited.
Yeah. But I still think it's over 90%.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It would probably make me submit fewer lineups. Like I would have fewer cards if late swap was a thing.
Sure. For me, like it wouldn't do anything because I already have enough cards that are options that it wouldn't change anything I do.
I would also definitely sell any card not in a time zone that I would sell all of my Asia.
Yes, I think that's very much the case. Like Japan and Asia, or Japan and K-League, I would have almost no interest in. To be honest, everyone else is in my time zone except for Japan and Asia. I'm up for everything else.
Yeah, so like exactly what you said right there is why I don't want it. You're like, I'm up for everything else. And like, I don't don't want the constant weekend notifications taking me away from what I actually want to be doing. That's all.
Yeah, like this wouldn't impact me at all. Again, like I said, like I understand that it would be negative for a lot of people and it would be positive for a lot of people. And there's merits to both ways. So the positives that I see for people are, and this was discussed earlier in chat, but like DNP, I have seen loads of players that have been on the platform that have sold their galleries because of DNPs. I think that if we included late swap, we would see a lot of people sell their galleries because they don't like late swap.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, to me, is the most frustrating part, I think, with Sorare is DNPs. There's nothing more soul crushing than being excited to watch a game, being excited for a lineup, and then just getting soul crushed because somebody's out of the squad because they have a toothache or something. So I think that there are lots of positives to bringing it in because I think that takes away the biggest frustration with people on the platform. Now, what I do think happens, though, is you add a new frustration of people need to put in more time with their lineups after lock. But I think what people would do is a lot of people would sell cards that are not in their regions in terms of when they're available to make adjustments, which that's a con, but also like they would have their galleries a little bit more set up to where they could do that and spend that time. And like realistically, like if you want to set your lineups and not have to worry about it, you still can. Like a lot of the time, like I said, looking through my lineups, Laird, I had 95 lineups this weekend. I had maybe 3 DNPs that were worthwhile in any of my 95 lineups. I mean, in that situation, I probably would have used like 3 late swaps from that perspective. So
it's not so much using them though. It's that, I guess you're not actually checking. Like,
I check. I have Sorare data up at all times, and I see like if my guy's not in line. Sorare data makes it really easy. I just look, and it's like, oh, all the guys I played in lineups are playing in this game and are starting. And if they're not, like I'm like, oh, this guy's out, or this guy's on the bench, and like I can see it pretty quickly. Like if I need to adjust something due to Sorare data and how it's set up. Now that said, like obviously, if you're not doing this and you're just setting lineups and not using late swap, you are at a disadvantage because if one of your guys is out and you're not adjusting and someone else is, that's obviously very detrimental to you.
I'm glad you brought that up because like literally speaking for myself here, like the reason I don't want it is because I don't want to be like locked to my phone or computer all weekend looking for DNPs. And the response is like, well, you don't have to. And it's like, well, I'm also not going to sign up to be like tremendously disadvantaged in my pro lineups. Like, yes, I don't have to, but also I'm better off just not playing at all than playing at a significant disadvantage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. But also at the same time, like maybe in that situation, like when you're signing up, you're like, oh, I'm just going to buy Prem players and I can check the Prem lineups whenever they come out. It's not a big deal. And if you're only playing a Prem, it doesn't matter. Like it's pretty simple and you're not really doing tons. So like I said, there are pros and cons to this part of the equation. To me, and I think this goes back to what Vita said earlier about, yeah, and so Vita said this, and I agree 100% with this. I think you could put a handicap on players that you're subbing in. So let's say I want to make a sub. That player comes in at a 25% XP hit. So all of a sudden, if I was getting 110%, I'm now getting 85. That's a massive disadvantage using the swap. That will dissuade people from just gaming the system and swapping guys in for guys that could still play, or even sub guys. Like you might just be like, I'm going to take the sub risk because I don't want to give up this 25%. Because even if the guy puts up 100 and I give up 25%, I'm capped at like an 80-point score.
I'm not even sure that's what he said, though. But I think what you said is important. But Vita said we talk as if you would have unlimited swaps or subs, but obviously capping that, meaning capping the number of subs you could use, would reduce a bunch of the drawbacks.
Yeah. There's a plus with it. But also, so like I think it goes back to what Vita said. The key is what is your goal as a game designer? What are you trying to accomplish with a game as a game designer? Are you happy with the DNP situation and people being upset about the DNPs, or do you want more engagement but possible frustration from that perspective because of the engagement that people have? Also, though, in that situation, you could be increasing your market selling points and improving the secondary market if people can go buy guys off of the secondary market during the week to plug into lineups. Like if I have a really good lineup and all of a sudden I have a DNP with a really strong guy, but I can go buy like a stud off of the secondary that would help my lineup, like I might go do that. Or you lock it before the game week starts, where it's like you can only play guys that you had in your gallery before the game week started. That's another part of the equation. So I think a lot of it comes down to what is your goal as a game designer. To me, I've seen a lot of people quit because of DNPs. People that would probably still be on the platform today that left because of DNPs. I've seen other people not want to come on the platform because of the DNP situation. I will admit I probably would not sign up today if you pitch this game to me and I had the knowledge I do now, and I'm like, what happened to the DNPs? And you're just like, oh, you just eat shit and you lose. I would probably be like, that's not super interesting to me personally. Now the question is, do people understand that when they come on? I don't know.
I think it's very obvious that there are no subs, and like I think it's obvious. Just Heat said, aren't people already checking lineups and watching games with their players in them, or am I spending too much time on Sorare data compared to others? There was some more of it. I don't see how late swap is a disadvantage unless it's out of your time zone. It's not so much that you're not checking your teams, it's that you're forced to.
Yeah.
That's what I don't want. Simon said, feels like DNP solutions are more likely now that there isn't a beat the game competition. Yeah, I can't fathom they would ever make like threshold easier. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up here.
Footy Woody, for someone that doesn't ever take DNPs, you sure as shit played Gift Orban this weekend in lineups. Sorry. Sure as shit looks like DNP to me. I don't know. I'll have to check. 0 minutes? Interesting. I guess your skill gap just
Andy said, why don't we just let everyone set their lineups at the end of the game week after all the games are played? It's just best ball.
Yeah, best ball. People love best ball, to be fair. I don't get it. I don't like best ball, but so in DFS, there's a game called best ball where you like draft 20 players and you get the bet. So like, let's say the lineup is 5 guys and it's like your best goalie. So like you would draft like 3 goalies, 5 defenders, 5 mids, 5 forwards or something. At the end of the week, your lineup gets the best players. And it just auto selects them for you. Some people love it. Like there's a big fan base in best ball that like really loves it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. I don't get it. But there's a lot of people that do. Like there's like tens to hundreds of millions of dollars in best ball stuff in DFS.
Rub said it's a disadvantage if you don't use your sub. How about the disadvantage of people who, for some reason, don't have the ability to spend 1 hour before the deadline to check and change their lineups? Man, there's like one important hour the entire game week, and it's the hour before the deadline.
Yeah, but like, then, like, you're just a lot of the time. I remember when it happened. You remember they pushed it back? They pushed it back like 4 hours. And I remember it was Chauny because I remember busting his balls about it. But then after that, it ended up happening. But like, so he's like, yeah, we're going to get so much impactful news. And I think like the first 4 weeks after the change, there was literally not one piece of impactful news for that entire window that it moved. But then after that, we got like, I would say there was like on average, like 2 to 3 pieces of impactful news that you would get from that 3 hour or that 4 hour pushback from where it was.
Yeah. I remember the deadline was 6 a.m. my time and then went back to 10. And didn't they do that to sneak some of the K-League games in to the weekend deadline?
Yeah, it was like there was K-League movements and there was summer movements. I do think they could have different hours in the summer compared to what they have during the year. Like if there's no European football, having a 10 a.m. lock when like the first game of the week is until like 8 p.m., like you could push that back.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was K-League was the reason. And then they decided they don't care about the K-League. And so they're like, okay, back to
yeah.
Yes. Do you want to talk about how to take advantage of late swap?
Yeah. So best way to take advantage of late swap would be like leave some key guys on the bench that you like are like your best players, like absolute best players. You're like, this guy is the best play of the weekend, and waiting and seeing like what lineup is good. be like, oh, this lineup is the best lineup I could possibly have this week. I'm going to sub him in for this guy because he's just the best play of the weekend. So like that's the most impactful way of doing it. That said, if what Vito was talking about, the 25% hit, okay, well, that's going to dissuade me from doing that. So in that situation, I'm not going to do that. But it still will keep some lineups alive that would have been otherwise. But also the negative here is like you can sit there and you can make your swaps, but if other people are also making their swaps, it's going to make their lineups a lot better as well.
So
a lot more difficult to beat. The way that like lesser people with lesser galleries compete is with how it currently is per se. Not saying they wouldn't in a different way either, but like if you have like just a bunch of not great cards, a big help for you is like a Manuel Neuer getting hurt in warmups and not starting, because that takes away however many Manuel Neuer lineups there are in that division at that time, which is a huge thing. If people have the ability to late swap that, all of a sudden you just lose that edge entirely. Now, I like, again, also like with late swaps, like I bitch about them and complain about them. I really don't care. Like it's part of the game. It is what it is. They're annoying as shit and I hate them, and it like makes my enjoyment of stuff worse sometimes. But as of right now, it's the game mechanic and it just is what it is. Like if I eat a late swap, I bitch about it for 20 minutes and say I got screwed and then move on to the next week.
Do you think that there is an experience negative if you like you're in first place and you think you're going to win and then somebody subs and you lose? Like, how does that feel as a user?
I would be fine with it, but like you also don't really know if someone subbed possibly. Like you might just be like, oh, that was their lineup anyways. Like I wouldn't care because like I also have the ability to sub, and it's fair to everyone in that situation as well. Like,
yeah, I don't even mean that, but like if your lineup's done and you know you go to the can't beat me tab on our leaderboard and you're like, oh, I'm gonna win, and then somebody makes a sub and you lose. Like, does that just become part of the game?
Yeah. I mean, in theory, yes.
Yeah. Hallington said, if anything, Sorare should try to make leagues and clubs put out team news earlier before the deadline. I'm sure Sorare will definitely get right on that.
Well, I mean, Footy Woody agrees. So, like, you know.
So which one do you want? Do you personally want late swap?
Personally, I want late swap. From a neutral perspective, I think they are both pretty close. I think late swap is close. I think there are pros and cons with late swap, and the current method is pretty close. There are pros and cons with the current method. I think that, which I think this goes to the discussion we had. I think there are a lot of pros and cons with late swap, but is it enough pros and cons? Is enough pros to make it a significantly better alternative than what we currently have? I don't know. I think that what we currently have is probably close enough that it doesn't require a full game overhaul with things, because of like, I just don't know if it's that much better, because like it's really detrimental to some people. It's really helpful to other people. I think that the overall game experience would be better if there was late swap, but I really am not sure. Like I've heard people's, the issue is so everybody has their own personal agenda, and that's what's the most important to them. And I just have heard a lot of people's personal agendas, and it's pretty mixed. It's pretty mixed between what they would want in terms of personal agenda. I've also seen personal agendas where it's just like, yeah, your like personal agenda makes no logical sense, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's just like, it's so outlandish that's just not realistic. So I think that there's lots of pros and cons. I think that there's quite a few different alternatives you can make to make late swap good while also making it non-abusable, which is why I think I would recommend that option. If I was designing the game today, if the game was not created and I was designing the game today with all my knowledge, I would recommend late swap. I think it makes more sense. Now, would I go and completely overhaul the game play from where it is now to do this? I don't know. That one's a little bit closer. What do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of like a different conversation of, because the game has existed for a while, we have what we have now. If you were starting today, would you include late swap? Vita said you complain when you lose because of a DNP, but you never appreciate when you win because of someone else's DNP. When the Bayern game is postponed and you benefit from it, you feel differently about it. I benefited greatly from the entire Austrian Bundesliga getting postponed a few game weeks ago. I was perfectly fine with no DNP, with everybody eating those DNPs. But again, you said like a ton of it's all very. I don't think you use the word selfish, but it's selfish.
Yeah, but like, yeah. So like, are you enjoying yourself as a user on the platform that has like Austrian Bundesliga players like ruining 15 lineups? No, you're probably having a pretty miserable week and you're probably very pissed off about that. Whereas if you had late swap, you would have changed stuff. You would have been like, all right, I still am able to salvage the week to some extent and make things a little bit better. And do it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, God bless you if you have 15 lineups just from Austrian Bundesliga.
No, but I mean, like, no, I don't mean like 15 Austrian Bundesliga stacks. I mean, like one guy here, one guy there.
Yeah, no.
Like stuff like that.
Simo said, feels like you could risk turning more users away with late swap compared to the existing DNP situation.
And I think that's the discussion. To me, I think you turn more people away with the current DNP situation, but I think that I think you constantly turn, I don't know. You constantly turn people away with the current DNP situation.
I'm gonna I disagree with that.
No, I mean that's fine.
I know that you know a handful of people who have quit because of it, but I don't think it's not this like epidemic.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good word to use. No, I think people constantly will get fed up with DNPs. Scosmo gets fed up like 3 times a week, then sells his gallery, then buys back in after he cools off. Like I've seen people that have sold their gallery and not come back and been like, DNP situation's too stupid for me. I'm out.
Yeah, I just don't think that the number of people like that is just not enough to make a change like this.
No, but like I'm saying, like I don't think we can quantify exactly how many people are leaving because of DNPs, and I don't think we can quantify how many people would leave because of late swap. Like I think a lot of people would leave because of late swap too. Like it's the same thing, so it's very difficult. So like I mean, the more and more we talk about it, literally I just got a message from Dan at Sorare Data. This is the message. He just sent me a message on Slack. So thanks, Dan. He said, I'm one of many former Sorare users that no longer play because there's no DNP solution. He's like, I'm with you. So Dan played and joined Sorare and joined up and then quit because of the DNP situation and that he does not like how it is and how it is played. And he has left Sorare and is not coming back. This is someone who has a lot of experience with Sorare and does not like the mechanic. So again, the more and more we talk about, though, I think it does go into your discussion. If we think it's pretty neutral, which I think I do, I don't think you do, but if we think it's pretty neutral in terms of like, would more people be pissed off with how the DNP situation is now or late swap? If we think it's pretty neutral, you have to keep it how it is, right?
Yeah, it's not worth the change.
It's not worth the change. We think it's pretty neutral. I think you think more people would be annoyed with late swap than how it is currently. I think it is but like what if I asked a percentage, like what percent do you think would be more annoyed with late swap versus no late swap? What would you say?
I think the difficulty is that like the number is different if the game was starting today. Like we have to appreciate that because there is no late swap now. It's like how many people would change. I don't think the number of people who like just get up and leave is that great, but I do think you'd see like a significant amount of like gallery trimming, that instead of playing 45 lineups, I'm only going to play 10. And I'm not sure that's good for Sorare either.
No, but I think other people would buy more cards and have more options and would like have more lineups if they can adjust and make changes to those lineups.
So I'm not sure how many people are going to go out of their way to buy more cards that they probably won't use.
They could use them in this situation.
No. I'm not saying that they wouldn't use but like when we really think of it, you don't get so many DNPs over the course of a weekend that you're utilizing these cards a lot. So you can make the argument like, oh, you don't even need to buy that many cards to like figure it out. But I like we've had the whole conversation of like having cards left over. And this is a game mechanic that forces you to have cards like hopefully, ideally good cards that you're not using just in case.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's a positive.
Yeah, I like I said, I think that it's just well, I do think this is a possible solution. Anzo talks about late swap is so different; it should be a different game mode, and that I kind of agree with. I think you could make it into its own game mode, where like late swap game mode is an option. So like right now we have classic and in season of the competitions. Like instead of that, we now have late swap classic, normal classic, late swap in season, normal in season.
Didn't DraftKings do that with NBA or MMA or something like that?
They did it with I think they did it with NBA, but then they got rid of it because nobody liked late swap. No one liked no late swap.
No late swap.
People in like sites have gotten rid of no late. Like FanDuel literally changed their entire platform to get rid of no late swap to have late swap because people don't like no late swap.
Right, like people. So but like that actually kind of brings me to it that like people hated having to like spend all night on their computer in order to late swap. So they were like, okay, no late swap. And then they got DNPs and they were like, no, we actually do want it. Like,
yeah. And the overwhelming preference was we prefer late swap.
Right. And just ruining your nights.
But that was the overwhelming product.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So like we have FanDuel, a much bigger company than Sorare, literally changed their entire product to do that.
Let's not pretend like one night of an NBA slate is the same as a 4-day Sorare game week when games start 24 hours a day.
Yeah, it's much different than like NBA where games start between 7 and 10:30 window.
Right.
Yeah, but also like that in that situation, like it's a daily game mode. I mean, maybe go to a daily game mode of Sorare. Like they're doing it for NBA. Like maybe there's a daily game mode for Sorare that you could do. But like again, you do a daily game mode with late swap or something, and you like tie people into windows. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Rigamon said isn't Rivals the different game mode. It is, but the
Rivals just isn't. Rivals could be, but it's just not. They just have dropped the ball with it.
They did for you. Lots of people absolutely love Rivals and play it all the time.
True. I love the game mode. It's just not incentivizing to me.
Just Heat said, again, are people's nights really ruined? I play MLS, so Saturday night, an hour before kickoffs, I build my Rivals lineups. I don't see any issues to checking if there's DNPs at the same time. So it's like you play MLS. So you have a very specific time when all of the games are.
Yeah.
If you expand beyond that and you play contender, challenger, champion, La Liga, Bundesliga, Prem, I'm missing something. It's not just one day and one night. Like MLS is like mostly Saturday nights. Yes, there are a few games here and there, but like that's like super condensed into the game week. Whereas if you have more lineups, like my first lineup, the first player I would have to check on like a Saturday is 2 a.m. and my last player is 11 p.m. I don't want to do that. That's why. Simple as that.
Yeah, you said that's why I don't want to do it. It shouldn't be about what you want to do. It should be whatever.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of users who would get rid of their cards that force them to have to check lineups in times where they want to do something else.
I know, and I think a lot of people would going to get rid of their gallery for that. But also, I think there's a lot of people would want to get rid of their gallery and have because of DNPs and how it currently is. I think there are people in both buckets, and I think you do not buy into that as much because like all right we can say all right I don't
buy in that lots of people are leaving because of DNPs. I understand that there are people who have left because of it, but I think that the raw number of players and the number of like cards they had is minuscule to the rest of the player pool.
I mean, I know probably 1,000 ETH worth of people that have left because of the DNP situation.
Yeah, but what's it worth now?
1,000 ETH.
2 ETH.
1,000 ETH. Like, I'm just saying, like I just know there's a lot of people that have left because of it. I also think like this is another example too, like right, the DNP situation. I would prefer it be late swap personally, but I'm fine with how it is. I'm not leaving the game because of no late swap. If they added late swap, Laird would not leave the game. Laird would still be playing. Laird can say he would sell some cards down, and he might, but Laird's not leaving the platform. So we don't really matter in that discussion because we're not leaving regardless. It's people that would leave because of one of the solutions. And I do think there are people in both buckets. Now, that said, I think because of how things are set up currently, it probably shouldn't change that drastically because like you have had this game the way it is for years and people have come to that for years and people have made the decision based on that. So I think overall changing it might be a negative.
So I think the gallery reduction, like I think that it would cause a lot of people to do it. And so like from a business standpoint, is that like that can't be good for Sorare, right? If all of these people who play 20 lineups are now playing 10 because they're like, oh, I have to fit my cards within this certain time when all of the games are, like, is that bad? Like that sounds bad to me.
It's a decision. Like people would have to make the decisions of like what is okay to them and what is not okay to them.
Right. But if like, would you think that more like, I agree with you that I don't think that many people would just like leave.
No, I don't think a lot of people would leave. It's the same thing whenever anything massive happens. Not a lot of people leave.
Right.
You're asking like, would more people come in because of it?
No, I'm asking, do you think enough people would actually reduce their galleries to like handle being able to do late swap, that's actually a detriment because now we own fewer cards?
I don't think people would sell the cards for it.
I mean, I think anybody who doesn't live in a time zone like where where players are ends up being a tremendous disadvantage.
But you might sell your Asian cards and buy more MLS cards because now you want subs in MLS. So like
how many lineups I can play, Sean? I've already maxed out my challenger and contender lineups. Like,
yeah, but now you need more cards because of subs. So like you sell your Asian cards. You don't even have Asian cards anyways.
The disrespect to
like how's like Key? Are you playing Key a lot this year?
I have Cecilia, Usami. That's 2. Some guy at 100 I had, Kim Ju-sung. Come on. Although I think he was opted down to 99.
Yeah, I just like I think people would buy cards and I think people would sell cards. I don't know if it would. I don't know how the offset would go. No, I think that like the most logical path would probably be create a new game mode for it, but like I don't know. Like all of a sudden, like you have so many different areas and buckets that you need stuff in. Like, is it really going to be like where are you going to get all these rewards for it, right? Like if you have a new set of contests, where are you going to get the rewards for it?
Well, I think you're not necessarily, well, I guess you would just enter more lineups.
Yeah, but like, all right, let's pretend I don't have the option, and let's say that there's no option. You have to pick late swap or no late swap. But maybe that's a way that people won't sell their stuff too, right? Because if you have that, and then like, let's say Laird, you can enter no late swap for Korea Asian cards stuff, but you can late swap MLS. Like you might do it. You might do that. You might just run that and like, okay, I'm sleeping during Asia, so I'm gonna no late swap that. And I'm awake and paying attention during the Prem, so I'm gonna late swap the Prem or something. Like but again, like you go to the same discussion of like, are you just gonna split the prizes in half? Because like it's already difficult. Like they're already not the best. Like, how are you gonna give 2 tier zeros at super level, right? Like you can't.
Yeah, you can't.
So like, how do you deal with that? Like, I don't think you can that realistically. So yeah, I'm not sure.
Just Mike had said, I think the best outcome to DNPs was bringing subs to 35.
I think that's a pretty valid take from Mike. I
agree.
I think that's a pretty reasonable take because it does mean if like your guy subs on at 60, doesn't get DNP, he can maybe still AA himself to like 50, which maybe keeps your lineup alive. Whereas like in the past, like, okay, he gets like 40. That's a lot worse.
I would also argue it's almost the same as being able to put a sub in with 75% score cap.
Correct, kind of. So I think that take by Mike is a pretty reasonable stance on the whole discussion.
I agree.
That was like a help to the DNP that was at least a help to like that your subs aren't as bad, because like a guy's gonna play start and play 60 versus a guy that's gonna sub and play 30. Like, okay, like maybe you want that guy that subs in that's gonna be an impact sub that's gonna possibly smash at the end of the game versus a tired team. So I do think it takes away some of the thing. The part that is obviously more impactful is like the guy gets a toothache on the night of the game and you just eat a DNP and take a 0. Like that's the part that's really unfortunate. Those are honestly, I don't care as much if my guy just randomly DNPs and subs or like as a sub to start. The ones that are really annoying is like Neuer got hurt during warm-up and you just eat shit. Or my guy got a toothache and is now out. Or my guy got mono and he's missing and like going to be out. Those are the ones that are more like, oh, that's annoying as shit. Whereas like.
So I'm going to bring this one up. Mike said, take a look at, where did that go? Juan J. Juan of Daegu from 2 or 3 games ago when he subbed on. So this is a situation where like he's not starting and you sub him. Yeah. And you're like, oh, let me get a sub. And then he rips 30 AA after coming on in the.
Yeah. Well, Korea has those weird sub things too with like the underage players and stuff.
Yeah. I wouldn't know this guy anyway because I would just sell all my Daegu players. Sorry, Hoodwink.
But so yeah, I mean, I think look, where we are is fine. Like you know what you're in for. I do think people get very upset with it and get pissed off. But you know what the repercussions are. You know what the decisions are. That's why you put in the time beforehand. And that's why you try to avoid DNPs as best as possible and make your lineups as strong as possible with guys that are going to play. Yeah, Blue Tomato says changing sub for 25 to 35 doesn't really do anything if you want to compete. I agree with that. But I think that there is some benefit to it. Like your lineups can to win a reward. If you get 45 points on a player, you can get a reward with 45 points in the lineup. It's obviously a lot more difficult if you get like 35 with a guy in your lineup. So like it does help a little bit if you have like one random dude that just subbed and like everyone else rips 90s. Obviously, it's not going to help a lot of people. If you have like 4 guys that subbed on and get 25 to 35, like it doesn't matter. But like that one lineup where like maybe you got a guy that subbed on and he all of a sudden gets 15 AA and you get 50 instead of 40, it is more impactful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like advocating for bench guys, but like I had somebody last week who I think he had like 45 AA in the first half and lost 10 of it in the second. Like he would have been better off subbing at halftime.
I won a division last week, I think, with 2 guys that didn't start. I could be wrong on that.
I won. I came in first place in Division 2. Or no, was that my second place one? Hold on. It was with Colidio.
I don't know. I can't remember. But like, yeah, I had something the other day where like 2 guys subbed in, but they got decisive. So like that's how it happened. But
Week
like
12. Hold on, let me see if this is right. Game week 9. Does that make sense? Sorry, I know this is riveting. Here we go.
Yeah, Blue Tomatoes. I'm not trying to say that subs are the change they made with subs are very impactful. They're not. I think it's a very slight help to subs, which at least like helps some people feel a bit better about it, which I think is important.
So this lineup won me $1,000, and Colidio scored off the bench.
Yeah,
who I probably would have subbed had I had the option. So Blue Tomatoes, can we talk about collection XP now? No, but Sean, what if you could only sub a player from the same collection?
That makes collections more interesting to me. Like that definitely makes collections more interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Because I think in the spirit of football, if a manager puts out his lineup and somebody pulls up lame in the warm-up, they can't take anybody from anywhere in the world. They got to take somebody from their team. What if we did the same?
Yeah, it would be more interesting for sure.
I think we found the way Sean buys into collections.
But anyways, no, I think that there's, in terms of like a wrap up of the whole topic, I think probably the most logical path right now is to not do anything. I don't see a better solution that is clearly better for a majority. Like I don't see a solution that is clearly an improvement. So for that reason, I would not change anything. I would now I will say what I would do though is if I'm them, I am constantly trying to come up with ideas that would improve the pain points here. I would try to continue to think about possible alternatives. Fling Flong mentioned earlier, I didn't really talk about it then, but I'll bring it up now. I don't know how this would work, but again, like this goes into the discussion. He said something about pay to sub, like you have to pay something to sub. Maybe something around that could work. Now, I haven't thought about it at all, really. So, like, but if I'm on their team, right? If I am the game designer on their team, and like, let's say they have 5, like, I am like, all right, can I do something with this? Yeah. Is there a path that could maybe alleviate some pain points and make the overall environment better for users? Maybe there is. Maybe there's something you can peel out of it that helps. Like, do I think the this sub situation they changed right now? I think it has such a low impact, it doesn't matter. But I'll tell you what, it seemed like a lot of people were happy and delusional about it after it came out and just didn't really have a full grasp of the concept. So like the thing is like that is still positive though. If you're getting positive sentiment for something that doesn't negatively really impact anyone, that's still a positive. Because I've talked with Bellama a bunch about stuff. Is like Bellama in the past has said that like emotions shouldn't matter with stuff. But, like emotions do matter. Like people's feelings and how they feel about stuff does impact things. Like if Scosmo's pissed off, he's selling his cards and not buying anything. If Scosmo's happy, Scosmo's coming in there buying this shit, buying that shit, he's doing things. Emotions matter. So like if you can give stuff that is a positive overall sentiment to everyone, that is a plus for your game.
Do you think that of the 3 options, meaning DNP, late swap, and rolling locks, that one is like, we talked a few things about subs, like how it could be done, how many you get, whatever it is. I think that's the easiest to go with. Instead, like from a gameplay perspective, from a lifestyle perspective, that one seems like the least intrusive to me. Do you feel the same or no?
No.
And is that because late swap is just easy for you?
Maybe.
And it's okay if it is.
It could be. I don't know. Like late swap for me would be a cakewalk.
Right.
For me, it'd be simple.
Right.
The reason I say that is because like, no, if I have to decide like my subs and I have to sit there every week and decide like, all right, this line's really good. Do I make sure I have a really strong sub here instead of, it would take a lot more time and thought process for me to do subs than late swap would be. Late swap would be like, oh, I'm sitting on here. All right, Adair's out. I'm going to play Rudiger. Done. Move on. Or, oh, Robertson's
assuming you don't have Rudiger in the lineup.
Yeah, Robertson's out. I'm going to play Samikis. Done.
Right.
Like that takes me 0 seconds.
Well, that doesn't take 0.
It takes about 2 seconds.
But the collection like idea could make it 0.
Yeah, I mean in theory. Well, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter to me. Like it's the same thing if it's a collection or not a collection. Like I just I'm sitting there on server data. All right, my next best player is this guy. Done. Over. I'm gonna play this guy. Like whereas subs, like if I have to sit there and think through subs, like that's gonna take me a long time. Like I'm gonna have to sit there and put a lot of thought into that. I think that's a more intrusive way to me, but like
that's fair.
Like I don't like the sub idea at all. I think the sub idea makes very little sense to me. For a lot of reasons. I have yet to hear a sub proposal that made any sense to me.
But like the difference really between subs and late swaps, like both of them end up with cards that you could use, but you're not using in lineups, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And you would just prefer to not prioritize your subs basically, like in lineups?
No, well, the reason for subs why it doesn't work for me is we've talked about it. Like, do you have a defender as a sub and your forward doesn't play? Now you don't have a forward in the line. That's not a valid lineup in theory. But like, so how does it work? Whereas like if I have a late swap, I have to put in a forward, so I just put in a forward. Same thing with like goalie. If my goalie DNPs, I can't just plug a defender into my DNP spot. If I can, then I can abuse it. And I'm just going to put a 0 goal. Like if I could just play subs, if I could play subs, and it just overrides every player no matter what. So like if I eat a DNP, I get that guy no matter what, even if it's goalie. I'm literally putting in 0 goalie in every single lineup in every region every time, and playing a sub in that lineup that's a great play and make my best 5-man lineup, and I'm going to win a lot.
Well, that's assuming that your sub
doesn't matter. If my lineup loses, it loses. It's not a big deal. Like I don't care. But like I'm saying, like if I can replace a goalie for a positional player elsewhere, I'm going to improve my lineup.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's.
Yeah, so I'm going to set my lineups, not even giving a shit about if someone else is out. I'm literally just going to enter 95 zeros at goalie, and then my best 5-man lineup elsewhere. Like so for MLS, for example, like my lineup would be a 0 at goalie, Kai Wagner, and then like Cucho, and then I would have like Gil, Puj with like Evander as a sub, and then Evander just comes in. And if one of those got DMPs, okay, my line's dead for the week. But if they don't, I'm replacing a goalie with fucking.
Yeah, I don't think that's a reasonable solution.
No, I don't think it's a reasonable solution either. But same thing, like let's say I have Cucho in my lineup and he DNPs and my sub is Evander. Like, do I just get Evander, Gil, and Puj, and I just don't have a forward because the forwards are a lot worse? That doesn't work either. Or like you said, like do I play a 0 at defender, and then do I play like Cucho, Rossi, Gil, Puj? Like that doesn't work either. So like none of these solutions work. The only way that would realistically work to me is have like a 9-man lineup where you have a goalie sub, defender sub, mid sub, forward sub. But that's just not. That's a lot of cards you then have to tie up, and it just doesn't make sense either.
What if you had like a pool of subs? Like you didn't necessarily have a sub per position per lineup, but you were like, this is my goalie sub for any of my 3 challenges.
You know what? That's actually an interesting idea. That's actually not a bad idea. What if you were given like 4 subs for the weekend?
Right.
A goalie, defender, mid, forward. And you got to select before they played if they go into a lineup. So like all of a sudden Neuer's out and I have Ulreich on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
I can play now. I wouldn't have probably had Ulreich as my sub. I'd have someone that's going to start. But like, let's say I have Nubel as a sub that I'm just not playing in lineup and he's just sitting there. So I put Nubel as my Bundesliga sub.
Right.
And then if Neuer's injured during warmups, I'm like, oh, Neuer got hurt during warmups, I'm going to use Nubel as a sub. That's interesting. There's still a way to gamify it, but less so. Like, for example, like if I think my best forward for the week is Harry Kane, maybe I'll just leave him out of a lineup and use him as my sub and then be like, oh, this lineup's really good. Or you have to have the guy out to use him as a sub.
That's what I think it is. Yeah. It's not like you're not choosing whether you play Kane or not. It's you had a DNP, Kane goes in. Yeah,
but like you should be able to pick. Let's say you have 3 Harry Kanes and Harry Kane DNPs in every lineup, but like you should get to pick which lineup that one sub goes into. Let's say you have 3 rare lineups and you have Harry Kane as your forward and all.
Yeah, I think that's such a like not many people have 3 Harry Kanes.
Let's say you have Harry Kane, Marmouche, and Undav, and all 3 of them just are out. They all got the fluid or out. Like, and you have one sub. Like your sub, you should be able to pick what lineup your sub goes into.
What if it automatically did it by division? Like if you had Division 1, 1 Division 1 and 2 Division 2s, it went in Division 1.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, if you have 3 Division 1s, I don't know what.
Yeah. This is actually
you're basically setting 4 subs per competition per game.
Yeah. This is actually an interesting approach that could make sense. This is one of the first sub-related conversations that I think has some validity.
Only took us an hour and 10 minutes to get.
Well, we've had this conversation many times before.
That's true.
I hate this conversation.
Like but it makes that feels like the least.
That is a reasonable approach to me.
Would you buy elite cards to leave as subs?
I mean, I already have them, so I'm not your target audience.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Like other people probably would. It would incentivize other people to have good options as subs.
Yeah. Did Pranksy have some terrible?
Yeah, I know Pranksy has some sons, so it came out like a little bit before lock.
Yeah, that was definitely before. I knew that. I don't even have.
But it wasn't. He wasn't definitely out. He was like possibly out. Bellama has him too. I don't know what Bellama played him, but like Bellama, I know has.
I say this. I'm like, oh, poor Pranksy only won 20 grand this week.
Pranksy will be okay. He didn't sell a card to cost himself winning a division this week.
He wasn't going to win, just a podium.
Yeah. So like Stibitzers, I'm sure he has some impactful DNPs. Like, yeah. So he has right now in Challenger in season D1, he has Jonas Svensson. He is 9 points out of first, and he got DNP. So like
Kramerich was known.
No, yeah, it actually was. It was known. That was known.
He's got a ton of Stibitzers.
I took him out. But like, so for example, this one situation, if he has a sub for Svensson, he wins. Doesn't really matter as long as the guy played, he wins. And
Pranksy no.
1.2 ETH off it.
Just that's assuming nobody else had subs.
I know. I'm looking at his lineup. I'm pretty confident he would have won.
But I'm saying, on like 520. There's somebody else there. Well, I mean, if it's a unique thing, then yeah, he averaged like 80 points a player with a 0 for this guy. Like I think he caught any unique lineup in season unique lineup. Like he probably wins. Which one was it? Let me see. Challenger
in season D1.
Hold on. Just so many stupid lineups.
Well, you sort it in a weird way.
Alphabetical.
Yeah.
This one here.
I'm pretty confident that wins if he has someone else in that lineup, even if other people get subs too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to look because I.
Anyways, no, I think that this is an idea, but like again, right? This goes back to the point I just made like 10 minutes ago. If I'm them and I'm in the game designer department for them, I'm constantly doing like a thought process like this. Like I'm probably like once a month. Let's say I have a 5-man team. Once a month, I'm going to be like, all right. Every Monday we have our team meeting. Let's say we have a team meeting on Mondays. Every Monday, one person has to give a 10-minute presentation on a possible improvement to the game design like this. And every week go through it and be like, all right, that was not good. That sucked. Like, we're not going to do that. Or like, okay, maybe there's something to work off that. We'll discuss this again next week. Everyone think about this one. Like, so like maybe like once a month you like go through this and be like, let's go through this, come up with something, see if there's an improvement that can be made off of this and go from there. But yeah, I think the plan and the possibility of what you just said and you talked about, I think that makes sense from a game design standpoint, that could be a pretty non-invasive way to make a lot of people happier. Like that seemed, again, I would have to think through it a little bit, look through more alternatives, look through stuff. So that seems like a good alternative.
So the two things to consider here, it obviously doesn't solve if you have like multiple DNPs.
Correct. But hey, if you have multiple DNPs, you just eat shit. Some of those lineups are probably going to be bad anyways.
But I'm saying like you use the example of like Kane. Kane's out in 2 lineups and you only have 1 sub forward. Like you're kind of.
Yeah, but you have to. Yeah, but in that situation, at least you saved one of them. At least there's some positive sentiment from that. You're happy.
That's sort of my response as well. At least you saved one of them.
Yeah, I saved one. I saved the better of my 2 lineups in this situation.
Right. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Just straight up lost it.
Blue Tomatoes asks, is it really that important that we change the current DNP mechanic? It is always important to constantly try to improve the game.
Sure.
In a non-invasive
and they could be doing that. Like we don't know that they don't have a 10-minute meeting every week.
We have no idea. Like we don't know what they're doing internally. But like it is important to constantly try to make non-invasive improvements to the game. That would be the way I would approach it.
Oh, I remember the other thing. Are you just like eating it if your sub doesn't play also? Like Kane's out and Marmouche comes in and Marmouche doesn't play also. And now you're just like, oh, I wasted my sub. Like, it is what it is?
I think you give people the option that if the guy is out or a sub, you can make the change.
Like if your sub is out?
If the sub's out, you're just fucked.
That's what I mean.
If the sub is out, you're fucked. But I'm saying like if a guy is out of the squad or if your guy is a sub to start the game, you can use your sub into that spot.
So not if they score 0.
You have to do it before the game starts.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, the whole like you have to do, that's actually the part I want to get rid of. I don't want to have to do anything. I want it just to automatically.
Are you trying to best ball it?
It's not that I want to best ball it. It's just like if I have a DNP and I have a sub, I just want the sub to go in. I don't want to have to go in and figure out what lineup it goes in or if I'm going to play it or any of that. It's just like FPL, it's like automatic. Your forward's out, you have a forward sub, he goes in. Simple as that.
Maybe.
But I guess my question is, do you get to use a sub if your player scores 0? But you're saying if it's before the game, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because he's already there. Yeah. Just Heat said, I don't play FPL, but what game lock mechanic do they use? Just curious. Their game locks, I think it's 90 minutes before the first game.
Yeah,
they have a 1 player per position sub.
Yeah, so you have I haven't played it in years, but you have at least 2 goalies, 5 defenders, 4 mids, 3 forwards, something like that. I've not played it in years.
Yeah, it's 4 forwards. You start 3, or you can. Yeah.
So, yeah, we talked about that one. I don't think that one really works. Yeah. I think it's too inclusive. So back to what Blue Tomatoes is talking about, like, is this #1 priority? Maybe not. But my point still stands. If you're the game designer, you should be spending a portion of each week trying to come up with a non-invasive improvement to your game that will make.
Also, like, we can work on more than one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone asked a question earlier. Someone asked me earlier. Their name didn't pop up though in chat, and then I forgot. They asked if I would give NBA another chance on Sorare. Someone just posted it's 2 goalkeepers, 5D, 5 mid, 3 attack. So you have that, and then like you start 1-4-4-2, and you get a sub at each position. So if your guy DNPs, you get a sub in. So yes, would I play NBA or give NBA a chance again on Sorare? Possibly. Possibly. The issue for me is like I don't really love the NBA product per se, and it just didn't go where I wanted it to go. Like I don't know. I'm not saying I wouldn't give it a chance. I would have to want to play it though, and I currently do not want to do that. But like, it's not bad per se.
It's a timing thing.
I tend to agree with you. Actually, your take like last week or 2 weeks ago that baseball is a pretty good product right now. I tend to agree with that. I think baseball is a pretty good product right now. Again, though, baseball to me is like very low level, and I would have to want to play baseball, and I do not want to play baseball right now. But like, if you have the funds and like you are interested in those, I think both are set up pretty well right now. Because the issue with them is that their price points were so high that they eventually fell out, and you just got shit on. I think all sports, including football, like all the price points are pretty reasonable right now to where like if you want to play them, it's a reasonable time to get in. Because the in-season in all of them, I think you can return your investment if you do well enough in season in one season. If you do well enough, if you don't, you're not going to, or if you have injuries, you're not going to. Like we talked about the other week with whoever tore their ACL in soccer, Rodri. Like if you buy an in-season Rodri this year, you just eat shit. Like if you have a Embiid and he tears his ACL, you're just going to eat shit. But like if you play well and you don't really have those sort of drastic injuries, you do have the opportunity to do well within one season, I think.
Agreed. Cool. You got anything else?
Nope, I do not.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. I'm looking here. 120 people are currently watching, 46 likes, and we just solved the DNP issue. It's crazy that nobody's liking this video, so please do that. Anyway, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Shout out to Quinny. I'll be back tomorrow with Harry Trades, and Wednesday, I believe, special guest, somebody talking about Prem in season. How about that? Let's go for it. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Get those steps in.